Yay. So now the council members.
Good evening. Welcome to the November 14th meeting of the Planning Policy Commission. Tonight we have one thing on the agenda, and it's a verification of what we did at the last meeting. But before that, we have two sets of minutes to approve. So I need a motion to approve the minutes of October the 24th.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of October 24th, Planning and Policy Commission meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say, any discussion? Any changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. I need a motion to approve the minutes of October 29th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 29th.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Any discussion, changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. So with that, I'm going to go right into Trish's presentation on what we need to clarify from our last meeting.
Thank you. You'll notice that the council chamber is now configured a little differently. It is so that, thank you. It is so that you all are able to, I think you were able to use the laptops to get to your agenda materials if you should choose, and then the public sees this as well as Channel 21 sees this. It went live for me on Tuesday, so Tuesday was a very fun night. And what is before you today, I don't know if we'll need the laptop and the screen, but since the last meeting on the comprehensive plan amendments, since your recommendation was so very different than the draft that I put in the packet, because I always just put a draft in just to start, so you have some place to start. We wanted to be sure that you're comfortable with how the findings of fact are written up. And I know, Randy, from Development Commission, you're used to reviewing them at the next meeting, whereas Planning Policy Commission, usually you don't look at them again. You just either say we're comfortable with whatever changes you might make, or you give us some kind of motion, or we sort of write it together at the meeting. But since this one was a pretty special one, we wanted to be sure, so I rewatched the tape. It's very interesting to see it again. I looked at the minutes that Susan did, and I tried to craft as best as I could what I heard you say. But you're able to, if I didn't capture it just right, or if I left out things that you're sure that you said and you wished I would have captured, we can work on that as well. And so that's why, you know, it's probably different for many of you that we don't usually come back with the findings, but tonight we're going to. And would it help for me to put the findings on the screen, or are there questions or comments that, yes?
Trish, maybe that was announced at the meeting that I missed, but is there not a recorder, Susan?
She had an emergency, and so she's going to do the minutes from the video.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah. Sometimes things happen, and
Oh, sure, yeah.
we don't have everything covered. Is it worth it for me to put it on the screen?
Sure.
Or, okay.
Point to it in the,
And did you all get the email that I sent it, that I tried, because I tried to explain it in the email, thinking
Yes.
that might be easier to understand than me trying to completely start over in the meeting. The only part that changed from the draft that was actually in your packet on the night of October 24th, would be the
29th.
24th.
29th was with the co-meeting
was the
with,
Human Services
okay.
meeting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Would be the page starting on, depending on which packet you're using, 2 of 5 or 16 of 21. And that's where I pulled out the rationale for the land use designation map for the recommendation. And I think this was Joy and Jason speaking most of these rationale and head nodding and that sort of thing. So that's what I took. I took 3 rationales for not changing parcels 1 and 2, the land use designation, to leave those as is. Are there questions on those? I'll let you read through them.
So this one includes parcels 1 and 2?
Right, this is the land use designation map, which remember, there's two pieces. There's the land use designation, which is community facilities, and then the second part is the rezone, which is the either open space, recreation, or facilities. And so I put that in the second part of the recommendation, which is at the end, which is the zoning map, which the zoning map, all three of the parcels change.
Where does parcel 3 get
Parcel
described?
3, because you all wanted parcel 3 to change to community facilities open space, it's not included in this because you did agree with the administration to change the designation to community facilities, but you didn't agree with the zoning for facilities, and so that's listed at the very end under page 4 of 5 or 18 of 21. This includes all three of them, I believe, as I read the small print, because they all change, because you didn't agree with the administration on any of the three for the zoning, because you wanted 1 and 2 to stay single-family small lot, and then you wanted 3 to be community facilities open space. So all three of them are mentioned in the zoning map rationale.
Trish? Is this lot 1, 2, and 3, are we talking about the Providence Point lots?
Yes.
The
Yes.
proposed high school? Okay, so, because I wasn't here, and I did try to bring myself up to speed. We are proposing that 1 and 2 not be designated for a high school?
Correct. The zoning allows a middle school or an elementary school if you don't change the zoning, if you leave it single-family small lot, but it would not allow a high school or a stadium. Whereas community facilities would allow a high school and a stadium and an elementary school and a middle school. Those are all permitted uses in
Okay.
community facilities.
And that was the agreement of the commission, was that we don't want a high
There
school.
was the
right?
vote
3 to 2.
was 3 to 2.
Based on a motion, yeah.
What?
I think point B, at the end where it says to allow for an elementary school or a middle school to be built, I would propose that that say and/or.
Is that a friendly, how do you want to do it? Do you want to take the
I thought
changes
this-
once?
I thought the single small lots included, you could put both of those on there. I didn't think it was one or the other.
Right, I couldn't tell from when I was listening to it if you were in favor of 2 schools, because several times I heard 2 schools are excessive, and I didn't know if it was 2 schools if one of them is a high
You know,
school
I don't
is
think you
excessive.
I don't think they made a designation. It was just either or, but I could be wrong.
Because I
I don't
listened,
remember the discussion being a limit of how many schools it could put on. We just didn't want to change the zoning to support a high school.
Okay.
So
That's out.
that was my recommendation.
And so whatever the zoning is, if it allows both of them,
Both the middle school and
then that's what
the
it would
elementary.
be.
Okay.
Say it as.
So then would I take out, because I heard you say that 2 schools is excessive on that parcel. Is it 2 schools if one of them is a high school is excessive?
Correct.
Okay.
It might have been a statement that 2 were excessive by anyone on the commission, but it wasn't part of the motion.
Right, well, no, I was just trying to get the rationale down.
Oh, got it.
So that,
I can't speak for, obviously, Commissioner Lewis or Bill, but yeah, no, I would think an elementary and a middle school would be fine. My concern, and I believe the concern of the community more had to do with teenagers, stadium
right.
lighting, things like that.
Yeah, I get, and we're not worried about them. We're worried about your rationale for your recommendation. And so I just want to be sure. So when I heard you say, you all, not you, but you all say that 2 schools are excessive, it was if one of those schools is a high school. Is that?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, because I'm sure that even though this was last week or two
So the
weeks ago-
zoning right now, does it allow a middle school?
Yes.
Okay.
And
So
an
elementary and a
elementary
middle
school
middle
and
school. Okay.
middle school are both permitted uses.
Okay.
Both together. I mean, both.
Well,
As
you'd have
opposed
to
one
do
or
the
other.
site, you'd have to do the site
whatever
plan, but they're
fits.
both permitted uses there. But I don't know how they would,
If they had space, they could put 3 there if they wanted.
it would all depend on the site plan.
Right, so my proposed wording change is not intended to imply that we show anything to the underlying zoning regulations, only that for purposes of conveying our rationale, we not give the impression that we only think there should be one school there.
Okay, but I'm just saying, though, I think in another part of this, and let me find it,
Number
I
F.
thought I put in the rationale that you all thought that 2 schools were excessive.
Number F, that's where that comes in, I think. Under rationale. at least
F on the zoning, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong
prefer
page.
a school.
Well,
I mean, that's what you said.
but the point of it is the school facility versus single-family homes.
A school. I'm just, the implication there, to me anyways, that we said.
It looks like it's point E.
So
Under E, it says, however, 2 schools on this site is excessive.
Right, so would you want me to change that to 2 schools on this site is excessive if one is a high school?
Sure.
Yes. Basically, we did not change 2 and 3 from the vote. And so whatever is approved to be on there, allowed on there, is on there. We haven't changed the zoning on it.
Correct for 1 and 2.
Yes.
But I thought one of the rationales for not changing was that you thought 2 schools was excessive.
I think that was in the discussion of the high school.
Okay, I just want to be sure I got
Yeah.
that right. So then I would change, this site is excessive if one is a high school, and then Janice's other one, under letter B, for an elementary school and/or a middle school to be built? Is that right? And/or. And then there's one more on F, on that same zoning map page. For F, confirming that PPC would prefer a school. Do you want that changed? From a school to,
Schools with an S in parentheses, open, close parentheses? Then it would
I think-
allow it to
That
be
would work?
plural.
The intent was, I think, that the land should be used for the Issaquah School District. So as far as, like you said, is that language conflicting, just being a school?
right, to me, it conflicts now with B, because we said and/or a middle school.
It does.
So what, could I repeat it? Prefer elementary school and/or a middle school on parcels 1 and 2?
How about prefer any schools be placed on parcels 1 and 2?
No, because then you
Because
put
then you could be a high school.
high school.
Say a school or schools. Or the
Just
parentheses.
say what you said, Trish.
I kind of like what
And
Trish
that's
said.
exactly what we've said.
Go back
so
to
why
the
not
B
say-
and
Yeah,
and
repeat it,
actually
that's
spell it
fine.
out. So prefer an elementary and/or middle school on parcels 1 and 2 rather than more single-family homes. Good. This is-
Trish,
But the zoning allows single-family homes on it.
Right, but I heard you all say that you would rather, if you left the zone the same, you would rather it be used for schools versus single-family homes.
I was under the assumption the school is only going to build schools and not homes.
Right, well, and again, we don't care, I mean, we care. PPC doesn't, I'm trying to get your rationale by why you left it, and you, from my understanding, you didn't leave it single-family so it could have homes someday.
Correct.
You left it as single-family so the school district could continue to build their elementary and/or middle school.
Correct.
Okay. Because truly, they could sell it for top dollar, and someone could build homes there, but that's not what you wanted. You wanted to keep the zoning,
Correct.
but to keep the schools. Okay.
By leaving it zoned residential, they can turn around and sell it for,
Sure.
If they're able to find a better piece of property with the money they make, how about it?
Yeah, I think that would be hard, but technically, they could certainly do that. Were there other changes? Then I would make, if I've made those same mistakes in A through F in the chart, I would fix those as well,
Say it again?
because I'm not sure if I,
I think the summary of the recommendation that you have under 6A is accurate.
okay, oh, good, you read it faster than I did. I was just reading it again to make sure I didn't make the
What you
same.
just agreed on is different
Oh,
than whatever this on 6A did not occur. Recommended that parcels 1 and 2 have no changes to the zoning map and remain single-family small lot because this zone allows elementary, middle, and does not allow high school. No changes to the zoning map.
For 1 and 2.
For 1 and 2, but yes to 3.
But remained single-family small lot. I think it's just semantics, but
Well, it's all semantics. That's what we do.
you guys voted for it, so it's what you assumed.
It reads right to me, 1 and 2 have no changes to the zoning map, remain zone single-family small lot. That's the current zone. Because the zone allows elementary and middle schools and does not. Seems consistent to me.
But up at the top, you discussed no homes.
well, but there's a difference between the language describing why we did what we did
Okay.
and the way that we're recommending
The land be used.
the land be
Right.
used
I tried to have the
vis-à-vis
rationale.
the actual legal code.
Right, for the rationale, I wanted to be sure that council, because council got the draft of this, and I warned them, though, that it might change, we might tweak it at the meeting, because you hadn't actually seen it. But I wanted them to know the rationale that you had, in case they didn't watch the meeting, although some of them did.
Yes, they did.
Okay, any other changes that you saw that would be,
Can you scroll down a little bit to show all of 6A? Okay, thanks.
Quick question for you, Trish. So lot 1 and 2, we're only recommending that single-family small lots for the purposes of building a elementary or middle school on.
And/or.
correct, you were,
Or, right. and/or.
PPC recommended no changes to the zoning, because the zoning right now, you could build an elementary and/or a middle school now, today.
But we are recommending that they could build both a elementary and a middle school on lots 1 and 2,
If their
Correct.
site plan allows.
if their site plan allows. Lot 1 is way smaller than lot 2. Can they combine these lots and resplit?
Because they own it, they come up with a site plan, and it has to meet code, or we don't look at it. So we leave that to, that ball is in their court to design it, and the city helps them if we can. And of course, we want them to be responsive to the neighbors.
They have that flexibility. Okay,
Right.
understood.
Right.
And we agreed as a commission, no high school. Is that correct?
The
That's
vote
voted on.
was 3-2.
Yeah, okay,
It
understood.
was a very close vote.
That ship sailed. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, yeah, no worries. There was a lot of discussion that night. So any other changes and/or additions, subtractions, things I missed?
What does city council take this up?
They had their study session on Tuesday, and they had 2 hours of public comment. Then the appeal is December 2nd at the regular meeting, and that's when we hear the SEPA appeal. So they weren't able to ask us any questions about the SEPA appeal or anything on that, because we'll do that December 2nd. And then they see everything again on, I think it's the 16th? Is that the next? No, not the 16th, is a Wednesday. The 14th, maybe? It should be in your, did I put it in your packet as dates that are exciting to us? And if they're not done with it on the, wow, I have the 16th. How can it be this? Oh, I'm sorry, 2020. That's why they messed me up. It is the 16th, which is a Monday this year, not in 2020, though. Yeah, they shouldn't have that calendar up yet. That's a little confusing. So it would be December 16th on the regular council meeting. They may take action, or they may not have enough information. They asked us for a lot of information on Tuesday, things that they wanted more information on.
Trish, may I, with the permission of the commission, I have kind of a very long-range strategic issue that I don't quite understand, and maybe you can help me, maybe you can clarify it. My understanding is that the city has met its state-mandated growth target already.
No.
Is that not correct?
Not correct. We
Okay.
have over 600 housing units to go.
No, I'm talking just population. The
No.
Growth Management Act.
The mandatory pieces for the Growth Management Act is housing growth and job growth in
Right.
20 years, and we haven't met either of them yet.
Okay.
We probably, depending on how permitting goes and how it goes through the process, we may get the housing one done in 2 years, but the job one, we're a little farther off. We're on
Okay.
track on both of them, but jobs
Okay.
is,
So the school board's rationale for needing more floor space for elementary, middle, and high schools is based on projected growth in student numbers. Okay. And that growth will be, by the city's comprehensive plan, the most of it will be in the central area. And so students that will be going to, assuming there are schools built on these properties, that these lots that we've been talking about, will not come from the central area, right? I mean, isn't that the objective, to try to get them as close to where they
Right.
live as possible?
and what we'd heard from the school district is their next bond,
Yeah.
that the next set of schools would go in central.
Right.
Which would be great, because then they'd not be compact schools, they'd have to be urban schools.
Right.
Which is even,
Even
but what we
smaller, yeah.
heard Tuesday night was that 700 kids from Issaquah High and 700 kids from Skyline would be the ones that would fill up the high school, the proposed high school at Providence Heights. And the school district has a little different way of doing population projections. They don't want to build an empty school and then start filling it. So it's sort of when it's just about to be overcrowded is when, the bond came out and they thought they'd hit the ground running, but we're already 3 years past the bond and there's no construction on any of them going, just because land is so hard to find. And
Right.
so they've really gotten behind the 8 ball because the market is so great and made things so expensive. But they do their population kinds of things a little different than the city, because they have that whole overcrowding and they don't want to build empty facilities. They want them to be pretty full by the time they're open.
So the school board growth projections, they use a different calculation. Are the numbers significantly different than the cities?
No, I think we work with them. We always send them what our projections are, and then they take a sampling of, whenever we do the impact fees every year, and they send us their new 6-year projections. And they take like new multifamily, like they might take some in the Highlands, some in Tallis, some, wherever else they've been built lately, to see what the what the kid count in some of them are. Because when the Highlands was first built, no one thought any kids would be up there, and of course, there's tons of kids up there, and so that was quite an aha moment. And so there's been some of those where we thought the smaller the unit, they won't have any kids, but it's like the bumblebee not being able to fly. He's flying. So it's done a little differently, but I think the hardest thing for them was that they couldn't hit the ground running once they passed the bond.
Okay.
It was a lot
From
harder
what
than
I
they thought.
understood from the presentation from the school district, they are overcrowded now.
Correct.
Right, they were
By
overcrowded in
hundreds.
2016 when
Yes.
the bond, yeah.
So it's not
But it's
just a projected problem, it's a current
It's current.
significant
Right.
problem.
And
I
they
understand that.
Right, and they knew that when they went out for the bond. They just thought they'd be fixing the problem a lot sooner than they are.
So I want to follow up on Randy's question and get clarification. The goals that are set for housing and jobs and land use, is it set by the state, or is some of that set internally by the city?
It ultimately is set by the state, but the process is that King County and King County cities work on the targets that are given to us from the state. And so at the regional level, there's a lot of divvying up. Some of it's based on how well you did with your previous 20 years. Some of it is negotiating with other cities. Some cities want a lot more, but they're not very productive in actually having them happen. And so there's a lot of negotiation that goes on before everybody agrees that these are the targets. And I know council wants to be more involved in that than in the next go-round.
So the city does have some say in what those goals are? Some.
Right, we don't have veto power, but we're sitting at the table. But
Right.
in the latest, the Vision 2050, we asked King County, we thought that since we work so closely with them and the region, we asked the region if they would be at the table with us. That we think they should be at the table with the cities, because those of us that are doing really well, meeting our targets, would like a little more support when we say, we kind of have to back off a little bit so we can catch up with infrastructure. We would like to have the region help us with that, because, transportation funding isn't what we would like it to be. We get behind on things. Obviously, schools are behind. But they said, well, they sit at the table, but they don't weigh in like we think the region should weigh in. But it would be nice if we had our own veto power, but we don't.
Anybody else? So what else do you
Anything?
need from us?
Nothing tonight. Y'all did well. I was hoping you were going to go one more step, Randy, and say, is the city going to work with the school district now to try to find sites in central Issaquah?
Well,
Because I think that would be
I
a
think
brilliant
that's
thing
such
to
a-
start, because the land isn't going to get any cheaper.
I haven't understood that for, a long time. It's between that and the mass transit or the light rail terminus, it makes me, very confused about why there isn't more progress to identifying sites and parking and, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a huge, huge issue that's going to affect everybody in the town, in the city.
If it's this hard now,
Yep.
I can't imagine that
Not
it's
gonna
going to
get
get
any
any
easier.
easier, right?
I think they're probably looking to the future, but they need to get this one settled before they come out and say, well, if you can build it over there, why do you need Providence Point? So I think they're doing it step by step.
Right, maybe it's hopeful that there's a lot going on behind the scenes that maybe we
Well,
don't know about.
you hope, you have to plan,
Right.
and it's coming, and people are coming, and building is coming.
So Trish, question concerning the high school. Based on the calculus that they're using to determine when and where they need a high school, they haven't really looked beyond Providence Point
No,
for a high
they've looked.
school location
No,
that is...
the information they gave us was they had looked already at 70 sites in the
Right.
Issaquah School District area.
Do we know what those 70 sites are?
We know several of them, just because they had to work them through, the zoning. Could we put one here, and could we, can we site plan it here? We don't know all 70 of them, because but we know of many of them, and they've been working on it, since 2016, since the bond passed.
So it seems, the point that I'm getting to is it seems like they're working kind of in a bubble, right? Where should we be looking at it more from a team standpoint? Because they're putting forth the need that they need high schools. As a
Right.
community, if we don't have proper space for high schools, we're going to have overcrowding. That's going to
Right.
impact our kids' futures. So should we be coming to the table and saying, okay, here's areas that we would like to see high schools, and sort of be the driver's seat also with them? Because
Right.
it seems like they're driving it, but they're driving behind everyone else, and they're too slow.
Right, I know we did that with the elementary school, with the parcel that we bought up next to Swedish in the Highlands, knowing that they needed land for one more elementary school, and it was within our reach that we could buy it. And so for a while, they were site planning for an elementary school up next to Swedish, but the land turned out it wasn't feasible for a school. So we do work with them when we have land, or when we know that that land is available, or that something might happen. We do work with them because it's in our best interest that schools get placed where they're needed.
Right, but I mean, shouldn't we have more say in
It's not our,
driving that bus, so to speak? Because it seems like they're just not, they're putting all their eggs into a few buckets, but
I would point out that the school board is elected, and the school supervisor is
Yeah.
elected, and it's an elected body, and their responsibility is to plan ahead. So I don't know, I mean, in my personal opinion, there's a lot of room for improvement in the cooperation between the school district and the city in a lot of areas. But and working more closely with them to identify these needs, Ron, is there. But, that's kind of the job of the elected members of the school district.
Right, right. And we meet with them, our council meets with their board a couple times a year to talk about issues and all that kind of thing, because they work together, but as you said, they're an elected group and have their sovereignty, if you will, as well. But we do help as much as we can help, I think.
okay.
Trish, when I asked the gentleman that was representing the school district, the 2 or 3 questions I had was, if this is the issue now, what's your plan going forward? It was a general question. He said,
Right.
I don't know. So I went away from that, thought, what is he really saying there? And obviously didn't follow up with it, wasn't appropriate. What was he saying there when he said, I don't know? He said, I'm too new. But he's the head guy. And is his answer just to get me off of the trail?
I don't know, because I'm not part of the school district or the board, so I don't know
I
what
think
their,
it's Jerome's
all I know is their 6-year plan that I look at every year when I do their impact fees. So I only know out 6 years. I'm hoping that they know farther out than 6 years, but I don't know that. So I'm sure somebody knows that, but
Maybe
I
not
don't
the
know
guy
that,
was
yeah.
representing the school district, who's the
Right,
head.
because he is new. He's less than a year here.
Mr. Mullins?
Yes,
Mullins,
Tom
yeah.
Mullins. Right. Anything else? I'm trying to think what is with us, with no signs, I'm trying to think what your next meeting is. It looks like from my handy schedule that on December 19th, oh, what will you do with all your free time coming up? There's another joint PPC Human Services meeting on housing strategy, and that would be December 19th, up in the Pickering room again, in our favorite room up there. But other than that, you guys had quite the year. Thank you very much for that. But I'll be sending an RSVP around soon for December 19th, since that seems so far in the future. Anything else?
I can RSVP no. I won't be here on
You're
that.
already a no? Okay. Write that down. Anything else for the good of the order?
Trish, I really liked the response that you gave to the individual that came in and said, I don't understand this. It was yesterday, the email came out from you where you
To
answered.
Harry's.
I really thought that was extraordinarily clear on a very complex issue. And it got me to thinking that for a lot of the city commissions, but particularly for PPC, the section of our documents that has the Planning Policy Commission and about and the membership, if there were one more little short paragraph, basically saying, these are the parameters about how the commission can work, and just very similar to what you said in your response to that gentleman. And frankly, I think that would be good for all the commissions, but I can't speak for the other ones.
Right.
It just seemed to me that the addition of that in the packet would help everybody.
Yeah, I can see it.
Members of the public that
Right.
say, well, wait a minute, how does this work? And I just thought it was extraordinarily clear.
And sadly, that's
So-
not my page that I get to add things to, but I
Well,
can ask the clerk's office,
Yeah,
because I think it would be
but that'd
helpful.
be, if the rest of the commission agrees that that
Right.
would be helpful. It just struck
Right.
me as being something that might help people
Right,
just.
because especially with, when people don't understand the process, we got a lot of calls just for,
Exactly.
where do I go next?
Yep.
Where do I show up? How do I get my thoughts across?
Yep.
And so, and it's super easy to help them and to try to, steer them. And they've all been, other than that night, the 10th, when there were some that were very frustrated, they've all been super respectful to work with. That was just a really bad night for everybody on the 10th, including me. But I like that. Anything else I have to say? It's really good to have Ron back, and it's really good to have Randy back.
Thank you.
Have everybody in their seats again, except Joy. But this is good. I like this. I like my commission. Anything else till December? Okay.
I think so.
Have a good long vacation.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
And with that, I'll close the meeting at 7:10.